Well, the Indian economy is expanding at around 8% per annum. The underlying reason for high growth rate is the government's expenditure in infrastructure to create an enabling environment for the market forces to work at their best. This helps in expanding the size of the market and the size of the economy. This report puts into context the benefits derived from the government's thinking big on infrastructure.
Capital expenditure or Capex creates a multiplier effect on the economy because it leads to increased economic activity and growth. That's why when a government spends on capital projects like infrastructure, machinery or buildings, it directly injects money into the economy. This is the foundation for the economy to sustain a high growth rate and vitally important for a country like India, which is sustaining an 8% growth trajectory while being on the path to become the world's third largest economy during the next 5 years.
We will endeavour to maintain strong fiscal support for infrastructure over the next 5 years in conjunction with imperatives of other priorities and fiscal consolidation. This year, I have provided 11,11,111 crore rupees for capital expenditure. This would be 3.4% of our GDP.
Infrastructure projects require labor, leading to job creation. Workers earn wages, which they spend on goods and services, which increases demand for various products and services, stimulating further economic activity and a virtuous cycle.
There is a recognition that India is now capable enough in its private sector so that government's role now has to be policies and also a facilitator.
Higher demand encourages businesses to expand, invest in new projects and hire more employees. The growth cycle spreads as companies seek new markets and Indian businesses take on a multinational character, also driven by a large pool of human resources.
What the budget seeks to do is to maintain growth, manage, reduce inflation, to ensure at the same time that our national capabilities grow and that India's rise, India's growth, the prosperity, progress of India, the development of India is not affected by a negative international environment.
Increased economic activity leads to higher tax revenues for the government, which is then reinvested into further capital projects. This cycle of spending, earning and reinvesting creates a ripple effect throughout the economy, amplifying the initial Capex investment's impact. Foreign companies too then seek to make the most of India's growth potential. They are drawn into the market too by a conducive atmosphere, as can be seen by business interests in India and the US seeking to maximize their opportunities.
But more important is by reducing the income tax on foreign companies by 5%, that's going to attract multinational to come in and invest more in India.
The multiplier effect works through a chain reaction of spending. The Indian government spending around $134 billion on infrastructure is a crucial policy decision that impacts broader fiscal policies, investments and economic changes. It is this kind of capital investment that India's finance minister hopes will bring in more private investment into infrastructure, for which the government has proposed viability gap funding and an enabling policy environment. The Economic Brief, DD India.
And to get in an expert perspective on this, we are joined by Dr. Nilanjan Banik, Senior Economist, who is joining us from Hyderabad, and Dr. Swati Prabhu is Associate Fellow at the Center for New Economic Diplomacy at the Observer Research Foundation. She's joining us from Kolkata. Dr. Banik, what message does a $133 billion Capex investment send to global investors?
I think the government of India is very clear that we want to create employment. Because one of the perceptions that is going around that not too many jobs are getting created. But if you're investing in Capex in terms of building roads, ports, infrastructure, what is going to happen is you're actually trying to create generate job opportunities for not so skilled type of labor. And that is a good thing, because even if you look into what is happening in the context of the US economy, the Biden administration is actually giving a lot of money towards infrastructure. But unfortunately, unlike in the US, where the population size is 1/5 that of India, we are able to see a stronger employment numbers thanks to the infrastructure push that we are seeing in the context of the US economy.
Okay.
In the context of the Indian economy, although it is creating jobs, but because of the size of the population, maybe we are not able to absorb enough of people. But the good thing is, something you already mentioned, is it has got a huge multiplier effect in terms of increasing our consumption expenditure. As you know that our neighbor, China, is actually suffering because of a fall in consumption expenditure. Because of the infrastructure push, not only it is creating job opportunities, but also thanks to the multiplier effect, it is also going to sustain the consumption expenditure that we are seeing in the context of Indian economy. Mind you, in the context of GDP growth rate, the most important component, apart from investment expenditure, government expenditure, export, import, is the consumption expenditure. It actually explains around 30% of the growth in national income. So going by that perspective, this is a very good thing which is happening, because the multiplier effect, something that you mentioned, is almost 2.5 times. So if the government is spending 100 rupees, it is actually creating a sum total of 250 rupees in terms of the national income.
But Dr. Banik, how quickly does this multiplier take effect? You know, is the Indian economy in a position to maximize its potential currently?
Unlike monetary policy, where the multiplier effect kicks in very rapidly, for investment in real sector, it may take around 1 to 2 years before we can see this impact to kick in. But the good thing is, for the Indian economy, FM is very clear from the beginning that she wants to give a more push to the building roads, ports, and infrastructure. Not only it actually helps you to increase the consumption spending, but from the perspective of doing business, because you have now more number of roads, ports, and airport, the cost of doing business actually comes down, which is also going to benefit our manufacturing sector. So going by this, it has actually got the twin benefit. And because this has continued over a period of the last 2 to 3 years, already the beneficial impact has kicked in, and something which is getting reflected in terms of higher GDP growth numbers that we are seeing at present.
Dr. Prabhu, coming to you, how do you view India's economic rise and its impact on regional as well as global South cooperation?
I think as one of the fastest growing economies in the world, India's demand-driven consumer economy has, somewhat largely remained insulated from global challenges, problems like inflation or recession. And during the pandemic, particularly, I think India has made, immense strides as far as digital technologies was concerned, and it is now gradually occupying a very important portion of its development diplomacy, not just in the neighborhood, but also beyond the neighborhood in Africa and other parts of the developing countries like the Pacific Islands or the Indo-Pacific broadly. And also India has introduced this India Stack or digital public infrastructure to the world, which has become its own ambition of sharing its best practices to the entire world, to the larger portion of the global South, which is its main developmental agenda. So, and this has enabled free flow of information, people, money through digital identity system, real-time fast payment systems, and data empowerment also. This has created a very unique architecture of digital public infrastructure. And this is one of the diplomatic ways, of India not only building its own economy, but also gaining strategic influence in different geographies. So this is going to have a major impact as far as regional cooperation and also global South cooperation is concerned. And in my opinion, I think India is now combining both its political objectives and also economic diplomacy of delivering global public goods. It's trying to become a pertinent actor as far as providing development is concerned to other countries in the global South. And this is highlighted in its idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat,
Yes.
which is this urge of becoming self-reliant by particularly in this unprecedented world that we live in. So I feel India's rise as an economic actor is going to have a major impact as far as global and regional cooperation is concerned.
Dr. Prabhu and Dr. Banik, do stay with us. We're moving on into our next story, which is about the Microsoft outage. Following the recent global cyber outage,